So in this lesson, we're going to look at HTML forms. We'll firstly look at an understanding of forms, then we'll look at how we can create forms and also get to validate them and submit the forms. On a lot of websites, for example, if you go on Facebook and you're trying to log into Facebook, you'll find that you have to submit your username, your password, and be able to send that information so that Facebook can verify that you are the owner of the account that you're about to have access to. Okay, so those forms that Facebook has enable them to collect data or information of the user and be able to verify it and now give authorization to that user to log in into their platform. So I'll just show you a couple of examples of forms and how they've been used on the internet. And actually in this course, we've at some point used a form when we were accessing Google. So when you go to the Google website, the first thing that you see is a very big form that people or users use to search for information. So I remember we were searching for Git, right? So we typed Git when we were trying to install Git. So when you press enter, that's how we are submitting that information to Google, and Google is able to use that input, to use that information that we've given them to give us a result or a response, right? But it's different when you go to a different page that needs to give you authorization to log into a system. So for example, when we go on Facebook, okay, so let me just close this because it will log into my account directly. We want to see the login page. So I'll open incognito and be able to visit Facebook. Okay, all right. So with this page now, I'm sure that you are able to see that we have two inputs, but the whole thing here that we are seeing is called a form, all right? And it has a button for submission. So if we try to log in, right? If we try to log in without inputting anything, it will give us a response saying the email or phone number you entered isn't connected to an account, right? Because we didn't put any value inside here. So this is called form validation. So Facebook made sure that they had put certain measures in place to prevent a user from logging into an account that has not given or submitted any email or password. Okay. So when we go, for example, to Twitter, right? When you go to Twitter, one thing you notice is that with Twitter, you don't have those forms, okay? You straight away don't have these forms, but you do have buttons that take you to one of those forms. So for example, we have the sign up for Google. So when you click sign up with Google, you have to input your details for Google, right? So let's try this one for Google. So if I click sign up with Google, it will open up a prompt that will ask me to input or submit my email or phone number. So this item that you are seeing, this element that you are seeing, is what we call an input that comes from a form. All right. So aside from that, you can also create an account by just clicking on this button, and it gives you this pop-up, right? So this pop-up still contains different inputs that you can use. Now you notice that with this one, it's a bit different in that with this, you are typing your name and your email, but it also has a feature where you can select a number. Even from the year, you can select a number. So this gets to tell you that with inputs, you actually have different types of inputs, right? And we'll explore the different types of inputs that HTML has. Okay, so close that and go back to our code. Right. So now, how do we write a form, or how do we create an HTML form? So what we're going to do is we're going to remove everything from here that we've written so far, and write a title. So here we'll say we use an H1 element, okay, so that we have a heading. This will be sign up or login, right? So we'll say login or sign up, right? So there we have a heading that says login or sign up, right? Then the next thing that we are going to do is that we are going to create a form, right? So with the form, unlike other HTML tags, it uses the exact name or the exact term, which is form, right? So if you notice for a paragraph, we don't write the complete word, say paragraph, right? We only write a P, right? Same with heading, you just write H, then we specify the font size, right? Which is 1, we tell it to be the largest. But with the form, you actually do get to write the word form like that. So with a form, it has an open tag and a closing tag, right? So inside this form, at the moment, nothing will happen even if we open our page. So let's save our page and be able to open it. Now, we don't have to copy the path for us to open it like we did when we were starting out, okay, like this, okay. You can see here there's what? There's login and sign up, right? But we don't have to do this because when we copy the path, every time we make changes, remember, if we make any change, okay, if we make any change like that and go back to our site, nothing changes until we refresh, and we don't want to keep doing that. So what we're going to do is that instead of using the path, we're going to use the extension that we had installed, right? Which is the live saver, okay? So the live saver was the extension that we installed, okay? So if you have that installed, what we're going to do now is just open this with the live saver. So you can either come down here and click this tab, or you can just come here, right click, and open with live saver, okay? So we're going to open with live saver. Okay, so we're going to close this tab that we had opened with a path and remain with this one for live saver. So we'll zoom in a bit so that we're able to clearly see this text. Okay, so now if we just make a change, okay, and save, our website will load and make that change without us refreshing, right? Okay, so let's get back to now creating a form. Now, if you notice on the page, you will see that we don't have any inputs here that we can use, but we've created a form, right? So this, yes, it is a form, but we need an input, right? We need to put an input and specify the type of input that we want. So even with this one, it's the same. You type the word input, then after typing input, we have an attribute called type, okay? The attribute is called type. So here you have to specify the type of input that this is, okay? So we'll start with the basic one, which is text, okay? So with the text, then you also have to give it a name, all right? You give it a name. This name is important because it gets to differentiate the types of inputs that you have. So for example, here we can have our username, right? There we can have our username, then we close our input like that. Okay, so this is the first input that we have. So we're going to save and be able to check in the browser. So that's our input right there, right? Now with this input, the user won't know what they're supposed to type inside this input, right? So we have to give the user some form of visual that they can see, right? So maybe some text that can tell them to say, okay, enter your name or email or something like that, right? So when you come back to VS Code, right? Inside here, we have another attribute called placeholder, okay? Placeholder like that. So whatever you type in the placeholder is what the user will get to see. So here we can just say username, okay? And there's a mistake there, right? Username like that. Then when we save, and you go back to your website, you notice that inside there is now what? Username. Or alternatively, what you can do is that there is a tag called label, okay? So you can use the label tag and be able to type username there, like that, okay? So this label is for this input, right? So now you can remove this placeholder if you want. Okay. Then when you save the work, go back, you now be able to see that here there is what username, and you have that input there. Okay, so you can have that. Then the other one that we want, okay, so because this is for login, so the other one that we have, we're going to copy the same tag, okay, and paste it here. Now the difference with this one is we want the user to put a password, right? So this one will be for the password. So what type of input is this? It's for the password. So here you type password. The reason why we're typing password is to also validate it, okay, to secure the password, right? So when you go back, let's say we save and we go back to our page, okay, when you go back to our page, you notice that there's at the moment we didn't put the label, okay, so that's why there's nothing there. But inside here, when you start typing, unlike here, right, the username, the user can type, okay, my name is Samuel, or my name is John, like that, right? But with the password, the moment the user starts typing, you won't be able to see what the user is typing for security purposes, okay? So what's enabling us to do that is this type that we've put here, which is password. Okay, so we need to remember to put the label here as well, so we can also add the label there for password, like that. Okay, so when we check, you now see that here there is now what? Password. Okay, so down here, since this is the login, we want to do two things: sign up and login. Here we can add an h2 and say login. Okay, like that. When you go to the page, we have the first one being login, right? Then now here, when the user enters their details, they don't have any button that they can use to submit this information. Okay, so what we can do now for the user is this. Okay, so we can create another input. Okay, another input like that, then the type for this input. Okay, so this is what you do. So for the type, if you check here, okay, if you check here this prompt, it's giving you the types of inputs that you can have. So if you check here, you have a button, for example, you have a checkbox, you have color, you have date. These are all different types of inputs that you can have, but we are not looking for these ones. Okay, so the one that you want is this one, submit. Okay, why are we choosing this one? Because this one will create a button that will help us submit this form once the user fills in their details. Okay, so that's the type, right? Then the name there is what? Submit, like that. Okay, so we save. Then when you go on the website, you now be able to see uh, the button there that says submit. Okay, so that's how we do that. Okay, so for the sign up, it's still the same. So for the sign up, for example, the user maybe can give their first name, their email, right? So if you say email, right, if you want to add another form, you can just get this same one. Okay, you can get from here like that. Okay, then we say this one is for sign up, like that. But what we want from the user this time is their email. Okay, now since here we specified that we want to get the email from the user, here it changes now. It's no longer just text, but it's email. Okay, then here we can now put password, right? You can put password, you can leave it like that. Maybe you'd want to get other details like maybe first name. Okay, so you'd want to add maybe that on top. Okay, so maybe you can add maybe, let's say, first name. So here it's text because we are dealing with first name. So here you can just say first name, like that. Okay, with an underscore like that. Then you get the same one. Okay, you paste it there. Then this one will be last name. Okay, so the only thing that changes is this one here. Okay, so we have password and we have submit there. Okay, so you save. But here we can actually utilize this placeholder and just say login. Right? Let's see how that works out. So when we save, come back here. Okay, so this one is just following the prompt. So what we can do is this. Okay, so for the input, let's try it to work. Okay, I'm sure this would work for a button and not an input. Let's try to remove this. Okay, yeah, so it's bringing the login outside. So I think this one would work for a button or the value. Okay, so I'll explain in a bit what the value is. Let's just try to see if we'll get what we want. Okay, so there it is. So now we have login, right? So for the other one, this one, we can say value. You attach the value to sign up. Okay, so now we have sign up for this one, right? Okay, so we have two forms. We have one form for logging in and we have another form for sign up. Now, one thing that you're going to notice about this form is that all these forms are aligning themselves next to each other, okay? So in the next lesson, I'll explain on the types of HTML elements. So in HTML, we have what we call inline and block elements. So these are what we call inline elements, okay? These are what we call inline elements, but we'll learn more about them. So for now, what we do is we try to align them properly so that they can sit, they can be on top of each other. Okay, so what we can do is I'll go on top here. Okay, we have login, which has username there and all that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a break here. Okay, I'm going to add a break, which is BR. That's a shortcut for a break. Okay, like that. Okay, now when I add a break and save, check what will happen. Right, so when I add a break and save, this is what happens. Okay, so we now have this username and this password down there. Now we have this input here. Where is it coming from? Let's check and remove that input. So that input is coming from here. So there, the word is supposed to be form. There was an error there, a typo. Okay, so when we save and come back, you will see that, okay, that error has gone. So even for this button, we have to make sure that it's down. So we add a break even here. So we copy this, okay. So we add that break here, then we save the work. It's now down there. So we can also add another break again to just create some space here, okay, between the user input and the password input. Okay, so we can add another break there, right? And it creates that space. Okay, so we can do the same for the sign up. Okay, so even for the sign up, we can add a break. Right, like that. Okay, like that. If you want more space there, of course, we can just add more breaks, like another break there, like that. Okay. All right, so we have more space like that. So we have two forms. We have the login form and the sign up form like that. Okay, now the thing that we need to take note as we are looking at forms is that in every form, okay, so this form, when we submit, we are sending this data or information to a server, and the server now gets to send this to a database so that whenever we're trying to log in, all right, whatever details we enter here will be compared to the information that will be already in the database so that they can allow us to log in or give us access to our accounts. Okay, so now the way we specify where this information is going is by using an attribute called action. All right, So the form has an attribute called action. Now, because we are not dealing with any servers and databases at the moment, we just leave it blank like that. Okay, so it's not sending anywhere. Then there's another method called there's another attribute called method. Okay, so the method is important here because you specify what type of request you are sending to the server. So this one is a post request. Okay, so the type of method here is a post. Now a post for us, okay, what this means when you specify post, there are two types. So we have a post and we have a get. Okay, so we can only use the get if we are getting information, we are fetching for information from the server or database. But if we are trying to submit or send information, we use the post method. Okay, so that's what we do. Now there are times when you would want to create, okay, you'd want to create a form that also submits a file. So how do you now submit a file? How do you create a form for a file? All right, so we'll do this. We'll copy this, all right, copy this and put it on sign up, not on login, right? Put it on sign up so that whenever someone wants to sign up, okay, they can give us their profile picture. So we'll say upload profile picture, like that. Okay, now the file type now changes. It's now a file that we are dealing with. Okay, so the name here will be profile. Just give it a name of profile, like that. Okay, so when we save and go on our website, you notice that now we have to upload an image. Okay, so let me change this. Okay, let me add a break here. Okay, that two of them. Okay, so we have that, right? Upload profile picture. So now when a user clicks on upload, it will prompt them to enter or to get an image. Okay, so we can go to our project there, okay, and images. We can now upload an image. So when I choose this image called IMG3 and say open, right, it will now pick that image up. This is the image there. Okay, this is the image that was there. So when you choose like that, or we choose another different one, you see it here. Okay, so when we refresh, it will be removed like that. So this is how you create the different input forms. Now, how do you validate? Because at the moment, if I say login, right, it will try to submit information, and it's bringing this error because it's not, it doesn't have a server where it's supposed to submit this information to. Okay, so if for example I specify that, okay, I want it to go to the root directory to submit this to the root directory. Okay, so here we are supposed to also add action like that and a method as well. Okay, so the method, remember, is post because we are sending information to the server. So we save and we check the work. So refresh our page first. Okay, let's go back to the initial page. Okay, this is the initial page. So if I try to refresh, okay, I mean submit, we still get that error. Why? Because we've not specified where it's supposed to go. We don't have that at the moment. We don't have something like that set up. Okay, yeah. So now, how do we validate this? Okay, how do we validate to prevent the user from submitting an empty form? Because at the moment where the user is able to submit, but it's just that we don't have where to submit. Now, if we had where to submit, this form would be submitted empty like that, right? So how do you validate that? So one way that you validate that is by using an attribute called required. Okay, required, like that. Okay, so this attribute required is the one that we have to put on all these inputs that we want the user to submit. So we don't put require on the submit button. Okay, so the submit button, you just leave it like that. So even on this one, okay, okay, so here I think we have a typo. I think this is where the the file was. Okay, yeah, I think this is where the file was. We made it, must have removed that. Yeah, so here we can also add that. So this is submit, so we are not adding it. What happened? I think we duplicated. Yeah, I think we can remove this part. It's the same thing as this. Okay, so I can remove that. Yeah, okay. So this input profile, we can add that there. Okay, we can add here as well, and here as well, right? So we can also add here for the email and the password, but for the submission we don't add that. So we save. Now since we've refreshed the page, now if I don't put anything here and I say login, okay, you've seen what's happening. It's telling me please fill in this form. Now if I fill in this form, let's say I say okay, my name is John, right? Type your name is John and you try to log in, it will now switch to another tab, right? Like please fill in this form. So now until they put the password and everything, that's when they can now log in, right? But because like we said, we have nowhere to send this to, so it won't bring this up. Okay, it won't submit anything, right? So you can try out the different forms that you're able to create depending on your specification that you need or the type of data that you want to collect from your user. Okay, so this is it on forms. This is how we create forms, this is how we validate forms, and this is how we submit forms.